Talking cricket, Colin Graves was chairman at Yorkshire Cricket Club between 2012 and 2015, covering much of the period involving Yorkshire County Cricket Club's racism case. And the former Yorkshire chairman, Colin Graves, is today said to be close to completing a new takeover, with the club understood to be only a month away from going bust. This was Graves a short time ago.
Virtually, Jim, from my point of view, I don't want to say very much about it at all. The ball now is in the Yorkshire Board court to make a decision. But my interest is real. It's absolute for one reason, and it's one reason only, and it's to save Yorkshire County Cricket Club. None of us want to see that institution disappear. It is not in a good place. So from my point of view, that's the reason I'm doing this. I'm passionate about the place, and I want to make sure Yorkshire County Cricket Club survives and prospers.
Do you think many people, Colin, will be surprised that you are still pushing to have a serious involvement with the cricket club after everything that's gone on?
I'd rather not say anything at this point in time, Jim. I'll make a full statement as and when the appropriate time is.
Top cricket journalist Mark Mercado is in studio with myself and Simon this morning. Of course, the former Yorkshire player turned whistleblower at the heart of all of this is Asim Rafiq. He is the man who brought the entire racism row, if you like, at Yorkshire County Cricket Club into the public domain. What does he think about the prospect of Colin Graves returning to the club? What does he think about Graves's bid being reportedly the only bid in town to save the cricket club? Asim Rafiq, good morning.
Morning, Jim.
Thank you very much for joining us. Simon is with me, and so too is a man you know well, cricket journalist Mark Mercado. You heard from Colin Graves there, Asim. The bid is real. The bid is for sure going to happen and is in. If it ends up saving Yorkshire County Cricket Club, that can only be good, can it not?
Yeah, look, I think the reality is that we've got to a situation where it seems that way, that Colin is the only option on the table. I think the frustration is how have we got to a point where that is the only option on the table. And I think, there's a lot of sound bites around these issues, and there's a lot of ill information and, people talking with authority that have little to no knowledge on what's actually gone on. And I think over the last 12 months, 14 months, again, there's been a lot of PR activity, and if only a few Eid events could sort out, an ingrained institutional racism, then we'd all be in a great place. And unfortunately, the ones that came in have been as poor, if not worse, than the ones that were there before.
But Asim, as you know, time is against Yorkshire County Cricket Club here. So if Graves's bid is the only bid in town, do you back it being accepted?
Well, it doesn't matter what I do, because it already has been accepted. Look, Jim, I can, reveal while I'm on here. On the 22nd of February last year, a week before my hearing, I was forwarded an internal email, which, while there was a process running of the new chair, the club had already decided that Colin was going to be the chair, along with a communications plan with the journalist and the publication that they were going to speak to. So this was always the plan. And I think, you guys are in the industry. It dropping on Christmas Eve, do you think that's happened by luck or coincidence, or do you think that was all planned?
So you're saying it's already a done deal?
Absolutely. And sadly, the reality is, and I think, obviously me and Simon have had our thing and that thing, but he mentioned the Professional Cricketers Association. But the reality is that the pressure keeps to be put on Yorkshire, and that helps everyone else. This is not just a Yorkshire problem. Everyone has handled this with a real lack of leadership and real lack of any sort of, I don't know, adults in the room.
I think that's a fair observation.
I see we're seeing you on Zoom, and Simon, you're nodding to what Asim is saying.
I think that's a fair observation, because with leadership you get clarity. But when you talk about ingrained institutional racism, are you suggesting that Colin Graves, by association, is racist?
Absolutely not, and I think that's where we've got to be careful.
But he's the chairman of the cricket club. To say institutional racism means it goes from the very bottom of the football cricket club to the very top, which means he's privy to it. So that means, but by citing ingrained institutional racism, Azeem, you're suggesting that the person that's at the top of the tree is part of that situation. And by what you've just said, you don't think he is. The systems are failing. The leadership has been poor. So lessons must have been learnt.
And that's what I'm trying to explain to you, Simon. Actually, institutional racism doesn't mean everyone that's in that organization is, as an individual, racist. Have people look the other way? Absolutely. Could people have done more? Without a shadow of a doubt. Is there policies and procedures in place to deal with situations where they arise? And the proof continues to show us, whether it's Yorkshire, ECB, PCA, or wherever you look, there isn't. So actually, does that mean we're all racist? No, I don't think it is. And that's what people can't understand. And, from day one, from when I spoke out, the independent investigation that I spoke to, the reality is every process has been handled with, just this, I guess what it looks like. And, as opposed to what actually needs to be done. There are top, and I think you've cited them before, there's top barristers, top people that have been involved throughout all of this. And it's very convenient to keep going at Yorkshire County Cricket Club. And look, they've proven again that not a lot has changed there. And I can give you examples of stuff that's happened in the last 14 months or in the summer, which, have not changed very much to what I went through. But the reality is that
if you preside over a business, then ultimately the systems that you deploy and the disciplines that you put in place as the owner, the chair of this business, are under your guidance. And the directions that you give to the staff that you work, the reporting methodologies, the HR functions, and all the different parameters that go in a business are determined by the people at the top. And where I concur with you is a lack of leadership. It's clear there's a lack of leadership because the way it's been managed, the way that you've been handled, the way the circumstances, the communication chains across all of the parts of cricket. But your behaviour within the confines of it hasn't been exemplary. So you're a person that has said things and yet done them yourself. So we're in an environment where it appears that it's inappropriate behaviour by a number of factions and a number of parties.
Do you accept that, Asim?
And to be honest, Simon, I think my anti-Semitic messages coming out, if anything, I proved my own allegations there. I from day one, all I've asked everyone to do is apologise and find a route forward. And that's exactly what I did. And, it's not for me to decide whether I've been forgiven or not. I will continue to do that. And I hope I've been able to do that with authenticity. But the reality is the other side where, there's been a lot of defense for the other side. And, I'm a human being that's been to the edge. I absolutely feel the pain that other people might be going through as well. But at no point, and everyone's had every opportunity to turn up, defend themselves, every opportunity to be heard. But, the reality is everyone's either chosen not to or made an excuse not to.
Well, Michael Vaughan didn't choose not to, did he? Michael Vaughan chose to defend himself, and he was, by definition, not found guilty of the allegations that were made against him. Yet the media and the circumstances surrounding it and the hysteria and the politicians had already found people guilty before they'd even had a chance to defend themselves.
I see Mark McAdoo is with us, the top cricket journalist. Here's Mark for a second, Asim. Asim, here's Mark. On you go, Asim, on you go.
Let me pick you up on that, because you're saying that, there was this thing that everyone was held responsible without actually anything happening. Well, that's not true, because
they were guilty by association is what I said.
Squire Patton Boggs' investigation had taken 14 months of me fighting tooth and nail just to be heard. And it was, everyone tried everything for me not to be heard. Once I got heard, it's like, oh, well, everyone's not had their chance. Everyone had every ample opportunity, whether that be select committee, whether that be sections of the press, or other situations, and they've chosen not to turn up.
I mentioned Mark McAdoo being with us. Mark, again, and I'll put it to Asim again in a second, but if Graves' bid is the only one in town, as we've stressed, and he has been on a second ago saying, yes, it's in and I'm waiting to hear, and Asim is saying it's already a done deal, if it means the saving of the cricket club, surely it's got to be given the thumbs up.
Look, Azeem, we talked about, Simon brought up the mistakes he's made around anti-Semitism in the past.
That's not a mistake, is it? Any more than the mistakes were made towards Asim. It's not a mistake. Yeah. It's a choice.
Okay, well, the point is, though, I was going to make is that Azeem's confronted them. He's worked to wrong his errors.
He's been confronted by them.
What I want to see is what Colin Graves' plan is to rejuvenate Yorkshire and to clear the clouds that have gathered above it.
Yes,
and I think
he should lay those out, shouldn't he?
Yeah, and it goes back to what Azeem was talking about the process.
I can
Simon was
reveal
talking
part
about.
of them if you want. I can reveal part of
is he? I mean,
Colin's
Azeem, before you do that, is Colin Graves competent? Is he competent to run a cricket club?
Look, there's absolutely no doubt that when it comes to running a business or running a cricket club, that you're not going to find many better CVs. There's absolutely no doubt from a business point of view. Is he competent enough to run a culture? I think that's debatable, because the reality is the club's accepted and sanctioned for the time that he oversaw. So what are his priorities? And, as you've run businesses before, it's all about a choice. And what is that choice? And I think Colin's choice is always going to be one part of it, which is not really going to be helpful.
But cultures adapt, don't they? And people learn lessons, and circumstances changes, and experiences change people's perspectives. Are you suggesting that Colin Graves is incapable of learning the lessons of a very brutal couple of years for Yorkshire County Cricket Club, which culminated in Lord Patel doing precisely nothing of any substance and actually making the situation worse, it would seem? Are you suggesting that he's not capable of taking those lessons, learning from them, and producing a far better Yorkshire County Cricket Club, given the fact that they are the focal point of most of the ira?
On you go.
Yeah, I think, look, actions are way louder than words. The apology that's going to come out from Colin in the next 24 to 48 hours is a massive climb down from the interview that he did with Sky Sports News. So for the first time, clearly, there is some level of acceptance. But, we've been, and this is where it goes away from Yorkshire a little bit. ECB, Professional Cricketers Association, we've been given words left, right, centre. And words are going to be what comes from Colin as well, because the reality is actions speak louder than words. And, I think over the next couple of years, everyone will see what Colin's going to do.
So Asim, if I can jump in a sentence, should Graves be given the chance to preside over a new look Yorkshire County Cricket Club?
Absolutely not.
Didn't need a sentence, did it? Asim Rafiq, thank you very much indeed. After the 11 o'clock bulletin, we'll wrap this up with Mark Mercado. Cricket journalist Mark Mercado has joined us because we have been debating the next chapter, if you like, in the story of Yorkshire County Cricket Club. This is a cricket club that has been beset with problems, of course, and now it's a question of can it or can it not be saved. Former Yorkshire chairman Colin Graves, close to completing a new takeover today, possibly, with the club understood to be only a month away from going bust. But the thing is this was Colin Graves, who was chairman between 2012 and 2015, covering much of the period involving the club's highly publicised racism case. So, should Graves be welcomed back? Well, of course, the man at the centre of the racism case was the former Yorkshire player himself turned whistleblower, Asim Rafiq. And on the prospect of a Graves return, on the prospect of Graves taking over the cricket club again, this was Asim Rafiq speaking to us just a short time ago.
Actions are way louder than words. The apology that's going to come out from Colin in the next 24 to 48 hours is a massive climb down from the interview that he did with Sky Sports News. For the first time, clearly, there is some level of acceptance. But, we've been, and this is where it goes away from Yorkshire a little bit. ECB, Professional Cricketers Association, we've been given words left, right, centre. And words are going to be what comes from Colin as well, because the reality is actions speak louder than words. And, I think over the next couple of years, everyone will see what Colin's going to do.
So Asim, if I can jump in a sentence, should Graves be given the chance to preside over a new look Yorkshire County Cricket Club?
Absolutely not.
That was Asim Rafiq a short time ago. A hard-hitting open letter from the Sporting Equals charity has warned Graves' comeback would, quote, undermine the progress the game has made against racism and make a mockery of the suffering endured by the victims. Mark Mercado, cricket journalist in this very building with Simon and myself, of course, has joined us live. Mark, what did come out there, and Asim Rafiq also said that Colin Graves' return, as far as he knows, has been planned for almost a year.
Yeah, well, people have been talking about it for quite a while. I think you have to go back to this debt issue where Yorkshire owe the Graves Family Trust, I think it is £14.9 million. It's a huge amount of money. So
he's always in the conversation, isn't he?
Yeah, if he's around, if he wants to be part of it, he's got to be part of the conversation, because they've got to somehow figure out how they're going to pay him back the money, how they're going to get the money back to him. And it sounds to me like he's the only one who's come up with a succinct plan that to actually be able to do it.
Mark, we put it to Asim Rafiq. Can he run a cricket club? Graves, yes, in an extremely astute way, says Asim. But can he be part of changing the culture of this cricket? Do you think he can?
I think that's the challenge, right? The kind of the way cricket finances work for a club like Yorkshire is they're totally dependent on getting Test match cricket. Having 5 days and potentially 1 or 2 other white ball games in the season is how they pay their bills and keep the club afloat and pay back that debt if that ever happens to be the case. And because of that, it means the ECB can hold Yorkshire and Colin Graves specifically to account. It's whether or not the ECB have if I'm going to be honest, the testicular fortitude to actually be able to do that. If he doesn't change the culture, if he doesn't reset the way that club runs, and if he doesn't create a open club that people want to be part of.
Well, that's where you boys will come in, isn't it? It's an irony, isn't there, that Asim Rafiq talks about actions and words when what we're really talking about is the allegation of words being said in the first place. I would think that, I mean, we discussed it in the break, myself and Mark, and sunlight is the best disinfectant. If we think that Colin Graves is a competent individual, put aside the £14 million debt, that would always include him in the conversation. What Asim may have seen is conversations including him, because you cannot not include the man that the cricket club owes the bulk of its money to. So he's going to be at the table, and the solution may well be that the only way to get it resolved was to bring him back into the fold. If the man is capable and competent, and the one thing that he has to address is a cultural issue, a culture that Azeem Rafiq was part of himself. A culture of inappropriate language and inappropriate behaviour which was being exhibited by, pretty much it would appear, lots of people. If the only game in town that saves this cricket club is not only Colin Graves' ability to be able to raise money for it, but its ability to be able to convince the ECB that it's worthy of regaining its test status, then the one place that Colin Graves as a commercial man is going to think that he needs to focus on is dealing with the cultural issue that is the challenge. Because one whiff of inappropriacy, one whiff of this coming again, and lessons not having been learnt, then Colin Graves will kiss goodbye to the £14 million debt that he's got in this cricket club, will kiss goodbye to any further money he's got put into this cricket club, because there'll be no economic future. So whether we look at personal agendas being served out by Azeem Rafiq, which may be justified, at Colin Graves for not doing enough and not leading enough, the reality is, if we believe in a redemptive society, it does not diminish the steps that may have been taken. And you have to remember, along this journey, steps have been taken and things that have been said that have been deeply inappropriate on a number of factions that haven't been pulled up. It was deeply inappropriate for Monty Panesar to come out and say the only person that can run this cricket club is an Asian. That's deeply inappropriate to say, because a white person couldn't say that. And Lord Patel's contribution to running this cricket club, who was brought in as a saviour, was pretty poor. Now, is it ideal that Colin Graves goes back in because the easy stigma is the one that we're talking about? I get it. But if the man is a fool, which I doubt he is because we've talked about his competency, he will repeat the crimes and the perceived crimes of the past. If he's got anything about him and Yorkshire County Cricket Club has any value, he will have to embrace the one challenge that Azeem Rafiq suggests is the one that he might not be able to, which is culture, by putting people in place beneath him that are capable of managing it who didn't seem to before.
You thought you were in for an easy morning this morning, Mark. When
is
you
that fair, Mark?
Yeah, no, I think every time, we've been talking about this for about, 2-3 years now?
Yeah.
And I think we're all getting to the same question.
Yes.
So our whole point, change the culture, change the leadership, stronger leadership.
Indeed.
Okay, Mark Mercado, thank you so much indeed. And thanks to Asim Rafiq for coming to air and joining us in that debate. And it does seem that Colin Graves, on the brink of a new takeover, the club understood, Yorkshire County Cricket Club, understood to be only a month away from going bust. We hope that that does not happen.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.